Welcome to AP US History Unit 9, which is the last unit. This unit will simply cover the time period 1980 to the present in American history, and it is pretty short, meaning it will only be worth 4 to 6% on your AP exam. This video will simply be a clipped together video of all my Unit 9 topic review videos, without the AP style questions at the end of each video. If you'd like to try the questions at the end of the videos, my full APUSH Unit 9 playlist will be in the description. Really quickly, I just want to mention that on this channel, there will likely be live reviews for this course at the end of the year. If you'd be interested in attending, as the exams get closer, the dates and times of these live streams will be released on my Instagram, so go make sure to follow that. Anyway, let's get into the final unit of AP US History. So in our last unit, we've established that by the 80s, citizens of America have lost confidence in the greater American government for a variety of reasons. So now, coming back into this, people start to think maybe the government is the problem, not the solution. And that right there is the opening for conservatives. Enter Ronald Reagan. He will argue that the government is too big, taxes are too high, regulations hurt businesses, welfare programs don't actually fix poverty, and that society needs more, quote, traditional values. And after Ronald Reagan gets elected, pretty quickly an economic system called Reaganomics is enacted. This is broken into 3 parts. First, you have tax cuts, meaning that people plus businesses keep more money. The second here is deregulation, meaning that there will be fewer government rules on industries. And finally, you have supply-side economics, where helping businesses grow is supposed to help everyone, meaning more jobs, more goods, and a stronger economy overall. But anyway, I'm sure you were wondering whether or not this is a good or bad idea. Well, it's not really my place to say. Rather, what I will do here is objectively explain what both political sides thought of this, and you can decide whether it's good or bad yourself. Conservatives would argue that Reaganomics would grow the economy, make inflation go down, and allow businesses to expand, but the liberals, on the other hand, would argue Reaganomics basically mostly benefited the rich and would cause the wealth gap and the US deficit to grow. And also, something important to note is that even though Reagan wanted a smaller government, programs like Social Security and Medicare stay, along with an increased military spending, so the government really stays a similar size. But before I end this video, I want to mention that this rise in conservatism was very impactful, mostly because the 1980s wasn't even that long ago. Modern politics to this day still debate ideologies from the 80s and beyond. And also, these conservative 80s weren't even totally political. You will also see evangelical Christians rise into supporting and aligning with the conservative side, so now it has a clear social effect. Hey there, do you remember that whole Cold War thing that has been going on for a while now? Well, it actually is going to end in this video with the collapse of the Soviet Union. Now, really quickly, I want to say that the dissolution of the Soviet Union is a very complex topic, and there is way too many reasons for it. So just understand that this video might be an oversimplification. But anyway, historians often like to blame 3 people for the Soviet Union's collapse: Ronald Reagan, Pope John Paul II, and Mikhail Gorbachev. For Reagan's side, the US will build a massive military with increased spending, focusing on defending against nuclear missiles, and the program here was called SDI, or the nickname Star Wars. Reagan also pushed strong anti-communist rhetoric, even going as far to call the Soviet Union a quote evil empire. In fact, let's roll that clip.
To ignore the facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire.
Oof. Apply ice to the burned area, my goodness. And finally, the last thing here is that Reagan eventually worked with the Soviet Union in a series of meetings to reduce tensions. But moving on, for Pope John Paul II, he helped push anti-communist beliefs in Poland and ignited a massive solidarity movement, which was a big blow to the Soviet Union. But the final person here, and probably the most important, is Mikhail Gorbachev, who was the leader of the Soviet Union starting in 1985. Basically, Gorbachev is not like his predecessors. He was instead a lot less strict. And by this point, the USSR is struggling to keep up financially with the US. In response, Gorbachev releases government reforms that attempt to fix society, but instead totally weaken the Soviet government. And finally, countries controlled under the Soviet Union begin to break away until 1989, where the Berlin Wall officially falls, and a few years later, the Soviet Union collapses. ending the Cold War. So now I want you to think about something. Since there is no more USSR rival, the US is gonna be the most powerful nation in the world. And after this, it's also important to note, the US is still going to intervene around the world for various reasons like peacekeeping and regional conflicts. And now I am sure you can imagine, lots of different debates about the US's role in the world will start up. Lots of people throughout the last century in American history have been working in factories. I mean, it was the whole point of the Gilded Age. But now with the Cold War mostly over, countries with a specific emphasis on China are going to open up to trade. So that begs the question, if it is cheaper to globalize and pay Chinese workers to produce goods, rather than paying a lot of money to American workers, why the heck would any business stay localized in America? And this will lead to one of the biggest shifts in world history called globalization, where businesses operate globally, meaning companies can produce goods in other countries, and there is a big trade increase. And pretty quickly looking at the United States, factory jobs dry up relatively quickly. And now you see new age technology come out at a very crucial point. So that means, now after the 80s, the US job market will shift to mostly encapsulate service jobs, meaning things like retail, healthcare, finance, education, or tech. This means how people work, how businesses operate, and how people communicate all drastically change in a brief period. This also means that labor unions dramatically decline alongside factory jobs. And I want to point out that this new technology, like the internet and computers, really does change everything. For example, later you have social media, along with stuff like remote work becoming a possibility. You also see a spike in production because new technology makes it so workers can produce more in less time. But wherever there is light, there is also darkness. And here I want to talk about the bad effects of this new generation. The first here is that wages for middle and working class Americans stagnated, as most economic gains increasingly went to corporations in the top 1%. The second thing here though is a digital divide, because I want you to imagine that lots of older folks who aren't prone to changing their ways, or might not have access to the new tech, could potentially not adopt the new technological changes, so that means some people benefit a lot from the new tech economy, while many others are left behind. Quick question, do you like being cold? I personally don't really like it, and a lot of Americans actually agree with me, which is why in the 1980s, millions of Americans will migrate to the Sunbelt. The reason being hotter temperatures and opportunities, which will cause these regions to gain more political power. But moving on, after 1965 when that whole Immigration Act was passed, immigration steadily rose following the 60s, but then you see it spike like crazy in the 1980s. And this happens because of a collection of things. The first thing is that the US enacted the Refugee Act of 1980, which just simply adopted a humanitarian approach to admitting and resettling refugees. But the bigger thing here is a whole lot of bad things around the world happened all at once. For example, Mexico and Cuba both go through an economic crisis. El Salvador, Guatemala, and Nicaragua all go through civil wars. Communism will force thousands to flee from Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos, and Iran also goes through a revolution. And many people also left the Philippines, Korea, and India. Now you don't need to necessarily memorize these all. I just want to show you that a lot of stuff happened all at once, which caused so many different immigrants to enter the United States in the 1980s. The big effect you see here is what our society has become now in the present. America is so culturally diverse as a country that there are so many bilingual communities and lots of culture from other countries I am sure you see all over the place. And another big effect of this is that immigrants will often fill many blue-collar jobs, meaning many labor-based jobs, in America. But the other big thing this leads to is the modern debates surrounding immigration. Things like border control, legal versus illegal immigration, bilingual education, and the more complex assimilation versus multiculturalism. Welcome to the last topic of AP US History in under 3 minutes. My intro here will just be to simply say thank you to you all for a wonderful year together, and let's get into it. So not to be abrupt here, but 9/11. It is an event we all know. Planes will crash into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon in a coordinated terrorist attack carried out by the group al-Qaeda. This is shocking to the US at the time, and it is a very unprecedented event. And so the US response to this will be to enact a war on terror. And if you are like me and wonder how exactly you can enact a war on an ideology, well, really what the war on terror was a war in Afghanistan, targeting the terrorist group responsible for 9/11, al-Qaeda, and the Taliban government that supported the group. And also the war on terror expanded to Iraq for reasons originally justified by claims of weapons of mass destruction. It's also important to note that the US depended a lot on oil coming from the Middle East, and so a lot of complications arose rose over energy because of the military actions happening in that region. So the US shifts. They don't have Cold War enemies anymore. Their big enemy now is instead terror. And this will even expand to the home front with the Patriot Act, where the US expanded law enforcement surveillance powers and strengthened measures against terrorism financing. If you were a supporter of this act, you might note the need to keep Americans safe, but critics of this act might say this violates civil liberties and privacy rights. But anyway, for one last time, let's look at the US. What can we say at the end of this course? Well, the US is the most powerful nation in the world. That is pretty objective. The US will continue to intervene internationally, influence global politics, and lead economically and militarily. My goodness, the curriculum here really makes me glaze the heck out of the US. Whatever. And that is it for the entire course of AP US History. I think you get the gist here with following my other channel, but I just want to let you all know that it has been a blast this year to cover US history with all you guys. Thank you for everything once again. I hope to see you in the live streams. I also hope for you to all get a 5 on this exam, and it has been an honor.